Okay, so you sent over a ton of info on global welding products.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, market analysis, projections, the whole nine yards.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to make sense of it all in this deep dive,
Right.
pull
Yeah.
out the important stuff, see where this market stands now in 2025,
Yeah.
and more importantly, where it's going, right? So
Exactly.
we're looking at the size, how different regions are doing,
Yeah.
and the big technology changes happening, right?
Right. So it really is a global picture.
Yeah.
And to kind of kick things off, in 2025, the global market for welding products that is estimated to be around 15,460 million US dollars.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of the starting point of our exploration.
$15 billion. That's
It's a big market.
a huge market. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not standing still, is it?
No, not at all.
Projections show some pretty solid growth coming up, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Looking ahead to 2033, the market is expected to reach $22,495.71238 million.
Okay. Wow.
So that's a compound annual growth rate
Right.
of 4.8%,
Right.
of 4.8% between 2025 and 2033.
Okay.
So yeah, we're looking at pretty consistent expansion over the next, 8 to 10 years.
Yeah. So this is all based on, some solid data, right?
Right. Yeah, these figures are based on historical data from 2021 to 2024,
Okay.
with 2025 as our kind of estimated year.
Yeah.
So it gives us a pretty solid foundation for these projections.
All right. So 4.8% average annual increase. That's a
It's a healthy climb.
pretty steady climb.
Yeah.
So let's break it down by, different regions of the world.
Right. Right.
Each region kind of tells its own story, right?
Exactly.
So North America, what's the situation there?
Yeah. So North America in 2025
Mhm.
is projected to have a market size of $5,720.20 million.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting here is that this actually accounts for over 40% of the entire global revenue.
Wow.
So it makes them the dominant market right now for welding products.
So they're really leading the pack.
Absolutely.
And they're projected to, what, just keep growing?
Yeah. They're projecting CAGR from 2025 to 2033 is 3.3%.
Okay, so it's not just about the size, right?
No, it's more than that.
It's about how their industries use welding, right?
Exactly.
Like, aerospace and automotive.
Right. It really reflects a mature and technologically advanced industrial base that, really heavily utilizes welding
Yeah.
in these, highly regulated sectors.
Right, so they need really high-quality, specialized welding products.
Exactly, yeah, compared to maybe some other regions where it's not as stringent.
Okay, so North America is the big player for now.
Yes.
But within North America, how do the individual countries look?
Right. Well, so as you might expect,
Yeah.
the U.S. holds a very substantial portion of that North American market.
Right.
Projected size for them in 2025 is $4,513.24 million.
Okay.
And their CAGR is about 3.1%.
Okay.
Canada's looking at $686.42 million with a slightly higher EGR of 4.1%.
Okay.
And Mexico's at $520.54 million with a 3.8% CAGR.
Interesting to see that Canada and Mexico might be growing a bit faster than U.S., right?
Yeah, it's a slight edge, but yeah.
What's driving that in North America, do you think?
Well, there are several factors at play.
Mm-hmm.
Their infrastructure is very well established.
Right.
So that creates a consistent demand for welding products, both for maintenance and for, new construction projects.
Right.
And then, you have the automotive and aerospace industries, particularly strong in the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah.
And those industries really require, the most advanced welding techniques and materials.
Right. Very specialized.
Yes.
And of course, just regular construction, residential and commercial, all of that needs welding too.
Absolutely. That all contributes significantly to the demand.
Okay, so that's North America, a really strong established market. So let's hop over to Europe. What's happening there?
Okay, so in Europe, the projected market size for 2025 is $4,483.40 million.
Okay, so still a huge market.
Yeah, definitely. Representing over 30% of global revenue. And their overall CAGR from 2025 to 2033 is estimated at 3.9%.
Okay, so North America is still bigger for now.
For now, yeah.
But Europe's still a major player.
Oh, absolutely.
So which countries are the big ones in Europe?
Right, so we have a few major players. The UK,
Yeah.
their projection is $753.21 million with a 4.7% CAGR.
Okay, so healthy growth.
Yeah, definitely.
What's driving that? I mean, what are they doing differently?
Well, I think it's a combination of things.
Okay.
Strong industrial demand, ongoing innovation, and a strong export sector. Plus, they have a number of infrastructure initiatives going on as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
Germany, they're a manufacturing powerhouse.
Yeah, for sure.
They have a substantial market, $887.71 million,
Huh.
with a 4.1% CAGR.
Okay.
And that's really fueled by, their reputation for innovation.
Right. Always at the forefront of technology.
Exactly. And also the increasing use of automation in their industries.
Mm-hmm. That seems to be a trend, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Automating more and more.
And their exports are globally strong as well.
Right.
And then you have France at a 412.47 million with a 3.1% CAGR, and Italy at 385.57 million with 3.3%.
Okay.
Russia actually has a pretty sizable market, 694.93 million.
Okay.
But a slightly lower CAGR, about 2.9%.
Okay, so they're not growing as fast as some others.
Not quite, no.
Interesting.
And then Spain is projected at 367.64 million with a 3% CAGR.
Okay, so a lot of different figures there, reflecting the different economies.
Definitely a diverse set of figures.
Any other countries worth mentioning in Europe?
Yeah, absolutely. Some smaller markets, but with notable growth.
Okay.
Sweden is looking at 138.99 million with a 4% CAGR. Denmark at 94.15 million with 3.7. Switzerland at 67.25 million with 3.5.
Right.
And Luxembourg, they have a relatively high CAGR, 4.2%.
Wow, that's pretty good for such a small country.
Yeah, it is. And the rest of Europe collectively is projected at 627.68 million with a 2.6% CAGR.
Okay, so even though the big economies are driving most of the volume,
right,
you're seeing some of the smaller markets doing pretty well, too.
Exactly. Yeah, they're more specialized, but there's definite growth there.
Okay, so what's driving all this growth in Europe? I mean, what are the big factors?
Well, I think it's similar to North America in some ways. The level of industrialization
right,
and the ongoing development of infrastructure, those are significant drivers.
Keeps those welders busy.
Definitely. And, of course, the automotive and aerospace sectors, they remain really important.
Yeah, those industries aren't going away anytime soon.
Exactly.
Anything else specific to Europe?
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning their focus on the environment.
Oh, right. Europe's always been big on that.
Yeah, they have a really strong and growing emphasis on environmentally friendly solutions and energy efficiency.
Yeah.
And that's really influencing the demand for certain types of welding technologies.
Right, so they're looking for more sustainable options.
Exactly, yeah. They want consumables that align with those sustainability goals.
So it's not just about the welding itself, it's about the bigger picture.
Right, it's about the environmental impact as well.
Okay, so let's shift gears now. Let's talk about Asia Pacific, or APAC, a region that's known for its rapid growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's happening in the welding products market there?
Well, APAC is where we're seeing the most significant growth momentum.
Okay, really taking off.
Yeah, for sure. In 2025, their market size is projected to be $3,710.40 million.
Okay, not quite as big as North America or Europe yet.
No, that's true. It's around 23% of global revenue. But their CAGR from 2025 to 2033 is a remarkable 7.5%.
Wow, that's the highest we've seen so far.
Yeah, it is the highest of any region we've discussed.
So that's a real sign of a market that's, really expanding.
Absolutely, yeah. It's incredibly dynamic.
So who are the main players in APAC driving this growth?
Well, China is a huge driving force, of course.
Yeah, no surprise there.
Their projected market size in 2025 is 1,558.37 million.
Okay.
And their CAGR is 7%.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it is. And that's being driven by, really strong domestic demand and just continued industrial expansion across so many sectors.
They just keep growing and growing.
They do. And then you have Japan with 512.04 million and a 6% EAGR.
Okay.
And South Korea, 445.25 million with a 6.6% CAGR.
So those are the big three in APAC.
Yeah, you could say that.
And they're all known for their, advanced manufacturing.
Exactly, yeah.
But I see India's got a really high growth rate, too.
Oh, yeah,
Let's
definitely.
look on that.
India's market in 2025 is projected at 371.04 million.
Okay.
But their CAGR is the highest we've seen for any single country so far, 9.4%.
Wow, that's a huge jump.
It is, yeah. And this is driven by a few things. The increasing use of technology in their manufacturing.
Right. So they're really modernizing.
Yeah, and just a surge in demand overall, fueled by their economic development.
Right. They're really becoming a major economic power.
They are. And they're also focusing a lot on exports in certain key industries.
Okay, so lots of potential in India.
definitely.
What about the other APAC countries? Are they all seeing this upward trend?
Yeah, we're seeing really broad-based growth much of the region.
Okay.
Australia is projected at 192.94 million with a 6.8% CGR. Singapore at 74.21 million with a 7.8% CGR.
All right.
Taiwan at 144.71 million with 7.3.
Okay.
Southeast Asia collectively at 244.89 million with a really impressive 8.3% CDR.
Wow, that's a big one.
It is. And the rest of APAC at 166.97 million with a 7.3% CGR.
Okay, so it's not just a few countries, it's pretty much the whole region.
Exactly. Yeah, there's widespread expansion happening.
And why is that? I mean, what's different about APAC?
Well, I think the speed of urbanization and industrialization across many of these nations, it's significantly higher than what we've seen historically in other regions.
Right, so they're playing catch up.
Yeah, you could say that.
But that creates a massive need for welding products.
Exactly. Yeah, that's fueling the growth.
Okay, so lots of construction, lots of new factories.
Lots of opportunity for the welding industry.
All right, so APAC's booming. What about South America?
Okay, so South America, they have a projected market size of $587.48 million in 2025.
Okay.
Accounting for more than 5% of global revenue and a CGR of 5.5% from 2025 to 2033.
Okay, so steady growth.
Yeah, steady growth.
Not as explosive as APAC, but still good.
Exactly, yeah.
So who are the big players in South America?
Well, Brazil is the largest market at 251.44 million. With a 6.1% CAGR.
Okay.
They've benefited a lot from infrastructure development.
Right, and they've been investing heavily in that.
They have, and also increasing adoption of automation in their industries.
So following that global trend.
Right.
Okay, what about other countries?
Argentina follows with 98.70 million and a 6.4% CAGR.
Right.
And then you have Colombia at 52.29 million with a 5.3% CAGR. Peru at 48.17 million with 5.7%.
Okay.
Chile at 42.3 million with 5.8%.
Right.
And the rest of South America at 94.58 million with a 4.6% CAGR.
So it's Brazil and Argentina leading the way.
Yeah, you could say that.
But there's pretty consistent growth across the continent.
That's right.
So what's driving that? I mean, what are the key factors?
Well, in South America, it's mainly about infrastructure development, continued industrial expansion across various sectors, and the fact that they have a significant automotive industry.
Right, especially in Brazil and Argentina.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's South America. What about the Middle East?
Okay, so the Middle East, projected market size of $618.40 million in 2025.
Okay.
Represented about 2% of global revenue. And a CAGR of 6.1% from 2025 to 2033.
So a smaller market compared to some others.
Yes, but with a good growth rate.
Right, so still some potential there.
Absolutely.
So which countries are we talking about in the Middle East?
Well, Saudi Arabia is the largest market at 217.68 million, with a 6.4% CAGR.
Okay.
Followed by the UAE at 127.39 million with 6.6%.
Right.
Qatar, they've been benefiting from big infrastructure projects.
Right, and all that work with their LNG facilities.
Exactly. Yeah, they're at 49.47 million with a 5.6% CAGR.
Okay.
Turkey is also at 49.47 million with a strong 6.7% CAGR.
Right.
Driven by their industrial expansion.
So they're really trying to grow their industries.
They are. And then you have Egypt at 37.1 million with a 5.9% CAGR.
Okay.
And the rest of the Middle East accounts for 137.28 million with 5.3%.
All right. So lots of investments happening in that region.
Yeah, definitely.
And those investments are really fueling the market growth, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So what are the main drivers there? I mean, what are they investing in?
Well, mainly infrastructure projects. They're putting a lot of money into that continued industrial expansion across various sectors.
Okay.
And then, of course, big investments in the oil and gas industry.
Right, which obviously requires a ton of welding.
Exactly, yeah, all those pipelines and related infrastructure.
So that's keeping the Middle Eastern welding market busy.
It is, definitely.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about Africa. What's the welding products market looking like there?
Okay, so Africa, projected market size of $340.12 million in 2025.
All right.
Accounting for around 1% of global revenue.
So the smallest market we've talked about.
Yeah, for now at least. But their CAGR is 5.1% from 2025 to 2033.
Okay, so still some decent growth.
Yeah, it's a solid growth trajectory.
So who are the main players there?
Well, South Africa is the largest market at 119.72 million.
Okay.
With a 6% CAGR.
All right.
Nigeria, they're seeing good growth due to increasing industrialization.
Right, they're really trying to build up their industries.
They are. And they're at 27.21 million with a 5.3% CAGR.
Okay.
And the rest of Africa, collectively, is at 193.19 million with 4.3%.
Right. So even though they're starting smaller, there's still some promising growth in Africa.
Definitely, yeah.
And what's driving that? I mean, what are the key factors there?
I think the key drivers in Africa are, well, increasing industrialization across many nations, rapid urbanization, which of course leads to construction demands.
Right, more people in the cities, more buildings needed.
Exactly, and then the development of essential infrastructure projects as well.
So they're really trying to build up their economies from the ground up.
Yeah, and that requires a lot of welding.
Okay, so that's a great overview of all the different regions. Really interesting to see how each one is, kind of approaching this market.
It is, yeah. It's a global picture, but with lots of regional variations.
So let's shift gears a bit now. Let's talk about the actual welding products themselves.
Right.
What are the different types and how are they performing?
Okay, so the market can be divided into a few major segments. Consumables, technology, and applications.
Okay.
So let's look at consumables first.
All right.
Stick electrodes, they currently hold the largest share.
Okay, so the most common type.
Yeah, you could say that.
And why is that?
Well, mainly because they're very versatile, relatively affordable.
Yeah, that's always a plus.
And easy to use.
Right, so good for a wide range of jobs.
Exactly, yeah, particularly in construction, shipbuilding, and pipeline projects. They're also well suited for working outdoors.
Right, can handle the weather.
Yeah, they can handle various environmental conditions.
And they work with different types of metal.
Yeah, that's another advantage. They're compatible with many different types of metals.
Okay, so they're kind of the all-rounder.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah, and I guess with all the infrastructure development and repair work going on, there's always going to be a demand for them.
Exactly. Yeah, those are key factors driving their continued popularity.
Okay, so stick electrodes are the reliable option. But what about other types of consumables?
Well, solid wires are a segment that's experiencing really rapid growth.
Okay, so they're gaining popularity.
Definitely. Yeah, they're very efficient, versatile, and they could produce really high-quality welds.
Right. So it's about the quality of the welds.
Exactly. Yeah, and that makes them increasingly preferred in certain industries.
Like which ones?
Well, like automotive, construction, and general manufacturing, especially for applications that require high deposition rates.
High deposition rates, meaning?
Meaning how quickly the welding material is applied.
Okay, so it's about speed, too.
Yeah. And they're also well-suited for automated welding processes.
Right. That seems to be the trend, automating everything.
It is. And another factor is the increasing use of lightweight materials and high-strength steel in these industries.
Yeah.
And that's boosting the demand for advanced solid wire formulations.
Right, because you need special wires to weld those new materials.
Exactly, yeah. Ones that can effectively join these new alloys.
Okay, so stick electrodes are the leader for now, but solid wires are on the rise.
Yeah, definitely.
Driven by efficiency and the adoption of new materials.
Right.
Okay, so let's move on to the technology used in welding.
Good.
What are the main methods out there?
Well, right now, arc welding is the dominant technology.
Okay.
Just because of its versatility. And it's cost-effective for many applications.
Right.
And it's used so widely across so many different sectors.
Like, give me some examples.
Construction, automotive manufacturing, shipbuilding, the production of heavy machinery.
Okay, so lots of different applications.
Yeah, lots of uses.
And it works with different metals.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons it's so popular. It can be used with a wide range of metals.
Okay.
And it can also be adapted for use with automated systems.
Right, so it can be modernized.
Exactly. It's very adaptable.
So arc welding is a really broad category.
It is, yeah.
It covers lots of different techniques, right? What other welding technologies are out there?
Okay, well, resistance welding is seeing a lot of growth.
Okay.
Because it's very efficient and compatible with automation.
Right, that seems to be a theme.
It is, yeah.
And it's cost-effective, especially for high-volume manufacturing.
Exactly, yeah. Environments like the automotive, aerospace, and electronics industries.
Okay, so for making lots of the same thing.
Yeah, it's really good at creating strong, repeatable welds. And it uses low heat input which is important for certain materials.
Right, things that are sensitive to heat.
Exactly, like thinner materials or delicate components.
Okay, so it's about precision.
Yeah, and a big driver for resistance welding is the growth of EVs, electric vehicles.
Right, because they have all those batteries and lightweight parts.
Exactly, yeah. It's crucial for assembling battery packs and working with those new lightweight materials in car frames.
Okay, so resistance welding is on the rise.
Definitely.
Any other technologies we should know about?
Well, it's interesting. Laser welding is actually identified as the fastest growing segment overall.
Really?
Yeah, even though its market share might still be smaller than some of the more traditional methods.
Okay, so it's catching up.
It offers really high precision and speed, which makes it attractive for specialized applications.
So it's all about, very specific, very accurate welding.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's becoming more and more important.
Okay, so laser welding, one to watch.
Definitely.
All right, so we've talked about the different types of welding products, consumables, technologies.
Right.
Now let's talk about where they're actually being used.
Okay, the applications.
Yeah, what are the main areas where all this welding is happening?
Well, right now, the automotive and transportation sector, that's the largest application area.
Okay, so cars, trucks, trains, all that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's driven by the sheer volume of welding they need.
Right, just think about how many cars are made every year.
It's a lot. And then you have the repair and maintenance of those vehicles and the development of transportation infrastructure.
Right, building roads, bridges, all that.
Exactly. All of that requires welding.
Okay, so it's a massive industry.
It is. And the shift to electric vehicles is also having an impact.
Right, new materials, new technologies.
Yeah, it's creating a demand for even more advanced welding technologies and materials.
Okay, so that's automotive and transportation. What about other industries?
Well, the building and construction industry, that's another rapidly growing segment.
Okay, so all those buildings and infrastructure we talked about earlier.
Exactly. And that growth is being fueled by, increasing investments in those projects.
Right, all that construction happening around the world.
Yeah, all the urbanization, new buildings going up everywhere.
And industrialization too, right?
Right. Yeah, all those new factories and facilities being built.
Okay, so lots of welding happening in construction.
Tons of it, yeah.
All right, so it's clear that welding plays a vital role in, so many things. From the cars we drive to the buildings we live in.
It's everywhere, yeah.
So let's step back and look at the big picture.
Okay.
What are the big market forces that are driving all this growth in welding products?
Well, I think there are a few key factors. The increasing adoption of automation.
Right, that seems to be a recurring theme.
It is, yeah.
Especially in manufacturing.
Right, they're trying to do things more efficiently. And that includes integrating artificial intelligence and robotics.
Oh, wow. So robots doing the welding?
Yeah, in some cases.
That's pretty futuristic.
It is, but it's becoming more common.
And that's all about boosting efficiency and productivity, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and of course the rising demand from those key sectors we discussed.
Right. Automotive, construction, manufacturing.
Yeah, all of them need more welding. And then there's also the growing emphasis on sustainability.
Oh, right. Using eco-friendly materials, energy-efficient solutions.
Exactly. Yeah, both because of regulations and because it can save money in the long run.
Okay, so that's shaping the demand for certain products.
It is. Yeah, it's becoming a major factor.
So it sounds like the welding market has a lot of positive things going for it.
Yeah, there are a lot of tailwinds.
But are there any things that might hold it back?
Well, yeah, there are some potential restraints.
Okay, like what?
One is the